In the mid-1970s, Jack and Janet Smurl seemed like an ordinary American couple, chasing the promise of a quiet life in Pennsylvania. They had survived years of hardship after their home was damaged in a flood caused by Hurricane Agnes in 1972. Hoping for stability, the couple decided to settle in West Pittston, a small working-class town nestled in Luzerne County. They purchased a modest duplex on Chase Street, moving in with their 4 daughters and Jack's parents, who occupied the other half of the house. At first glance, it was the perfect arrangement. Family close together, children in a safe neighborhood, and a chance to rebuild what life had washed away. But the house on Chase Street was never ordinary. From the very beginning, something about it felt heavy, as though the walls carried secrets that had been buried long before the Smurls arrived. At first, the family dismissed the oddities as the strain of moving or simple bad luck. But the home seemed to resist their attempts at peace. Appliances broke without explanation, pipes leaked despite constant repairs, and stains bled through freshly painted walls as though the structure itself rejected their efforts. It was not long before the Smurls realized they hadn't just moved into a house. They had stepped into a story of shadows, a legend of horror that would follow them for over a decade. The first disturbances were subtle but chilling. In the quiet of night, Janet began hearing the sound of footsteps pacing between the rooms, even when everyone was asleep. Their dog would suddenly bark at empty corners, growling as though it could see an intruder no human eye could detect. Soon, foul odors, thick, suffocating smells of rotting flesh and burning, would drift through the air, seeping into the walls without a visible source. Lights flickered, radios turned on by themselves, and the television would erupt in static even after being unplugged. At times, dark stains appeared on the freshly painted walls, oozing back within hours after being scrubbed away. Janet recalled hearing an invisible presence dragging heavy objects across the attic floor. Yet when Jack investigated, nothing was out of place. Doors slammed with unnatural force, objects vanished and reappeared, and the air seemed charged with a constant tension that made the family uneasy in their own home. The entity seemed to feed on their fear, escalating slowly, as though testing boundaries. While the Smurls tried to dismiss these occurrences as coincidences, deep down, they sensed something far darker was taking root within the walls of their Chase Street duplex. By the early 1980s, the activity inside the Smurl home had moved far beyond broken appliances and foul smells. The unseen force began attacking the family directly. Janet described being pinned down on her bed, an icy hand gripping her wrists, while whispers slithered through the room in a language she couldn't understand. Jack reported being sexually assaulted by the entity on multiple occasions, describing it as a terrifying violation that left him drained and humiliated. At times, he claimed the creature took the form of a grotesque old woman or a shadowy beast, climbing onto him in the dead of night. The children, too, were not spared. They woke screaming in the dark, insisting that they had been scratched or that an unseen figure had sat on their chests, pressing the air from their lungs. Jack's parents, living on the other side of the duplex, confirmed hearing blood-curdling screams and violent bangs that shook the walls. Yet when they checked on the family, nothing appeared out of place. Neighbors reported hearing screams and shouting through the walls, terrified cries that carried across Chase Street. But when they looked outside, the house stood in eerie silence. Furniture levitated, mirrors shattered, and family photos were torn from the walls by unseen claws. The haunting had grown violent, deliberate, and personal. It was no longer a question of whether the Smurls were imagining things. The evil in their home had made its presence undeniable. Desperate, the Smurls turned to the Catholic Church for help. Priests were brought in to bless the home, sprinkling holy water in every room. For a brief period, the activity seemed to weaken, but within weeks, it returned with greater ferocity, as though mocking the family's faith. Janet later said the entity would often intensify during prayer, filling the house with the smell of decay or shaking the walls so violently that crucifixes fell from the nails. The case soon attracted the attention of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators. When they visited the Smurl home in 1986, they reported sensing not just one entity, but multiple spirits, one of which Lorraine claimed was an inhuman, demonic presence. According to the Warrens, the entity revealed its hatred for the family, especially targeting Janet with both physical and psychological attacks. Their recordings reportedly captured growls, guttural voices, and violent knocks. Neighbors continued to confirm the disturbances, saying they heard screams, crashes, and even a woman's voice crying for help from inside the house. Yet whenever police or outsiders arrived, the house would fall silent, leaving no trace of the chaos within. These witnesses gave weight to the Smurls' claims, transforming their story from private terror to a case that drew national media attention. For over a decade, the Smurls endured the torment of their haunted home. By the late 1980s, the case had gained nationwide attention, with newspapers labeling it one of America's most terrifying hauntings. The family described nights where the walls shook violently, beds levitated, and dark shapes lingered in the corners of their rooms. Janet claimed the entity followed her even outside the house, whispering her name in public places, or showing itself as a fleeting shadow in the corner of her vision. In 1986, after the Warrens declared the presence of a powerful demon, the church authorized several exorcisms of the Chase Street home. But the rituals only seemed to anger the force further. The attacks grew bolder, sometimes leaving the family with scratches, bruises, and an overwhelming sense of despair. Even after multiple attempts, the church remained divided on whether the haunting was genuine or psychological. Finally, exhausted and broken, the Smurls decided they could no longer live under the constant oppression. In 1989, after nearly 13 years of terror, the family left their duplex behind, moving away from the house that had become their prison. Reports suggest that once they relocated, the intensity of the disturbances declined, and their lives slowly returned to normal. The Chase Street duplex still stands, its walls silent, but its history forever marked by the darkness that once resided within. Looking back at the Smurl haunting, the signs are impossible to ignore. This was not the work of a restless ghost, nor a harmless trick of the mind. The disturbances reacted intelligently to prayer, as if mocking the family's faith. The violence went far beyond knocks and whispers. Scratches carved into skin, beds levitating in the dead of night, and even assaults that left lasting scars. Multiple witnesses stood outside the Smurl home and heard screams, crashes, and voices where no one should have been. Neighbors, priests, and investigators all confirmed the unexplainable. And through it all, the entity seemed to focus its wrath on Janet, attempting to break her down, to destroy her faith, and to fracture the very core of the Smurl family. These are not the patterns of a simple haunting. These are the hallmarks of something darker, something demonic. After 13 years of torment, the Smurls left their Chase Street duplex behind, but the legend of what happened within those walls still chills America to this day. Was it truly a demon that stalked the family, or a case of mass hysteria amplified by fear? Perhaps we may never know the full truth. But one thing is certain: the Smurl haunting remains one of the most terrifying and controversial cases ever recorded in the United States. And sometimes, the most frightening monsters are not those we imagine in the dark. They are the ones that wait for us at home. And so, the Smurl family's story leaves us with a chilling reminder that sometimes evil doesn't just haunt old ruins or forgotten cemeteries. It takes root inside the walls of an ordinary home. The question remains, was this truly one of America's most terrifying demonic cases, or a legend that grew out of fear and faith colliding? Whatever the answer, the echoes of the Smurl haunting still send shivers through Pennsylvania's history. If you felt the chill of this haunting tonight, make sure to like this video. It helps more people discover these dark stories. And if you're brave enough, hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because every week we uncover more of America's most terrifying paranormal encounters. Remember, the shadows are never far away. Until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you.